AI is shifting power, markets feel unstable, and many founders, especially across the Middle East and diaspora communities, are asking the same question. How do you build with conviction when the ground keeps moving? Today's guest chose to stay in Lebanon through economic collapse and Beirut port explosion and build anyway. We talk about anti-fragility, AI, wilderness as an advantage, and why titles may be limiting how you think. If you're building in uncertain times, this conversation is for you. I'm Sarah, and this is Creating with Chris. Putting the titles aside, who is Chris?
Well, Chris is a paradox, I would say, Sarah. I had multiple episodes in my life where I chose to change myself fundamentally for strategic reasons, personal reasons, spiritual reasons, and then I would say national reasons, if I may, due to the circumstances of living in Lebanon. But right now, I would say Chris is the paradox who likes to write but does not enjoy reading, likes to watch video but does not like recording himself on camera. So this is kind of a bit uncomfortable for me, but I'm getting used to it. At the same time, Chris is the person who enjoys life, who wants to grow life in people. I'm a university instructor, so I enjoy teaching students how to become actual market professionals instead of just giving them the theoretical know-how. I'm also a chief technology officer and a technology advisor, and I can talk a bit about my journey toward that and how I reached it actually, not what I reached in my career. I work with multiple entities, mainly outside of Lebanon, and within the Lebanese ecosystem, I try to curate the projects I work with. I am also the founder of The Collective, which is an initiative I started last year. Not me myself. We started as a collective effort eventually at the end of the day. And the purpose of The Collective is to collect the entire Lebanese ICT ecosystem, whether they're locals here in Lebanon or abroad, trying to collect the whole ecosystem under one umbrella so that we can genuinely coordinate. Because living in Lebanon shows you one or two things about living life that is kind of different from Europe and the West and the US. It's on the lines of, in so many cases, the government has some gaps and it has a lot of shortcomings. And we can either choose to be the people who criticize it, who complain about it, who only highlight the negativities of it, or we can choose to fill the gap ourselves. And that's what we chose to do at the collective. I'm also, some people call me entrepreneur. I don't like that word. I like the word in Arabic. We call it حرتاجة, which is just someone who tweaks around with things here and there. So I've got me a couple of SaaSes being prototyped to solve very specific business problems in Lebanon that are specific to the Lebanese context and to the context of other nations that might have some similar governmental gaps, I would say. So this is me. I'm someone who chose to stay in Lebanon irrespective of everything. I'm someone who chose to get rooted even more, even though I had a very close near-death experience during the Beirut port explosion. I'm
Yeah.
someone who
Yeah.
enjoys genuinely just uplifting others, those who have been sharing similar experiences, because it's really tough being in this country. And not only that, I'm someone who aims at expanding human potential to the best of my ability within myself and within those around me, because I do believe in the capacity that we have here as a country, as a nation, as a population, and what we can genuinely achieve together if we just laser focus our energy towards something that is actually useful. So I hope so that summarizes what I do.
Perfectly well. You said you don't like to be called entrepreneur. Why is that?
I don't know. I think it's just an ego thing. If I'm being honest. I mean, everybody's an entrepreneur nowadays. You open up a landing page, you call yourself an entrepreneur, and I think it's just like we've gotten to a point where we use so many terms absolutely interchangeably, Sarah, to the point where I would call someone who's had multiple multi-million dollar ventures that are successful. That's an entrepreneur, right? That's someone who's earned the title. But I wouldn't call myself an entrepreneur. That, if anything, I don't even want to become an entrepreneur. I'm just someone who likes to be title free, because the more I give myself a title, the more I limit myself within the function of that title and the identity that comes with it. So I wouldn't say I'm an entrepreneur. I'm someone who likes to tweak around with some projects. I tweak around with a company here and there. I tweak around with a side project here and there. I come up with a course every now and then. I do some mentorship. I work with NGOs. I work with the private sector. It's just a very nice, flexible, open, boundless, if you want, manifestation of who I am and who I want to become.
I had personally problems with the titles. I mean, in my LinkedIn, it always changing because I don't know. Here, you have to define yourself as a role, basically, and it feels exactly what you just said. You put yourself in a box when, as a human, you're so flexible and fluid. You can move around so many spaces. You
Yeah.
can learn new things. But one thing I love about Lebanese people, and I've told you I've lived in Lebanon myself, is your resilience. Where does your resilience come from and your motivation to stay in this field?
Uh, I would choose the word anti-fragile at this point more than resilience. There's no reason, objective reason to it. I just prefer that word more. Resilience has been overused. Like we're resilient. It's kind of like we have been overusing this word to justify everything we've been going through as a nation to say we're resilient, so that's okay. Not put that aside. The source of my anti-fragility, I would say, is how you give a specific narrative to your life and what you want to accomplish with your life. And then I see my life as a combination of a Netflix original on the one hand, so you do things for the plot, and an open world video game, kind of like GTA 5. So you do things for the plot of the game. The only difference is my boundaries are within harming myself and harming others. That's where I never overstep. So my anti-fragility and my resilience stem from that fact itself, which is if there's a challenge, I'm interested. If there's going to be some problems to be solved, I'm interested. And I would add, to put the business aspect aside with the problems that I would solve, I would add to it the geographical and historical context that comes with Lebanon, Sarah. This is something I would assume that every person has something similar to their home country as well. But for me, Lebanon has a very dear, specific, unique story to it. Whether it being the cradle of civilization, whether I reside in a city called Byblos, which is where the alphabet was created. Whether it's the fact that Solomon's temples were built using cedars coming from my country. It's a lot of things altogether. And those who haven't been in Lebanon are missing out on so much, which is I'm looking at the sea right now in front of me, and that there's going to be a sunset pretty soon, and that doesn't happen in many countries in February. But at the same time, I'm also 30 minutes away from playing with the snow and building a snowman. Uh, One of the reasons why I chose to stay in Lebanon and get rooted as well is because of the diversity that we have. So most of the people are usually, to those who don't know, also Lebanon is a multi sector country. We have around 16 sects within a very small country that's smaller than most capital cities in the world, but somehow we coexist. Sometimes we don't. That's why we have civil wars, but we're not going to get into that right now. But for me, it's a very interesting combination that's happening. It's a lot of context. It's a lot of culture. It's a lot of diversity. It's a lot of richness. It's never monotone. It's never boring here in Lebanon, paradoxically, because again, occasionally someone's going to get shot or get whatever it may be. But the grander scheme of things, if you overlook the daily details that are based on fear and insecurity, if you genuinely look at, uh, I would say the intention behind Lebanon, because by design it's beautiful, geographically it's beautiful, culturally it's beautiful, everything about it is pretty nice, and it makes me more determined to stay here actually and stay rooted. And quite honestly, I wouldn't imagine living in a city that doesn't give me access to the Mediterranean. This is very important to me. And I would love my children eventually to grow here in a country where they can just lay around in the snow and then play around on the beach and then meet a Sunni and discover what they think and how they think, and then meet a Shia and discover how they think and what they think, and then question Christianity. It's a beautiful intellectual place to be, I would say.
I can say 100% because I live there, and I what I loved about Lebanon is the reason I use resilience is because my mind is still stuck since I left. That's how I would describe it. But obviously, it's a very cliche word now, like you said. But I love Lebanon because there are so many diverse people living there, as you said. And I had friends from all over the place. I was the person that was just discovering myself. Uh, and then there's this part that I feel like the Lebanese people are so great at, the entrepreneurial, which I know you don't like that word, but you guys are
That's
very good.
crazy. I don't have sensitivity around it. Don't worry about it, Sarah.
But you guys are extremely into creating things,
Yeah.
whether it's art, whether it's design, fashion. It's a very creative country. And especially now, what I'm looking into the tech world and how the ecosystem is blossoming. But I haven't been there for a long time. But before we move on to that, I want to know, how did you get into this part of the tech scene? Like, were you always a technical person? Like, where did you get your interest?
That's very interesting because I never wanted to be an engineer in the first place. My father owns a butcher shop. I come from a small family owning business. And I really enjoyed dealing with people when I was helping my dad at the butcher shop growing up. I've always been business oriented. I've always been people oriented, you know? And when I graduated school, I didn't even want to go to uni. Living in Lebanon, you probably know this, but living in Lebanon, you have to either become an engineer, a lawyer, doctor, or join the military and become an officer, you know, for the prestige. That's pretty much it in Lebanon. It's not just the prestige, it's also the security, because you mentioned something that almost everybody in Lebanon is an entrepreneur. And it's not, for me, I don't think it's just by design or culture, it's out of the need to survive. But we can get to that in a little bit. So I randomly joined the university. I didn't have a plan for it. And I had a fight with my dad when I was 18 years old. I don't want to go to uni. Yes, you have to go to uni, get your degree, and then do whatever you want. But as long as you have a degree, kind of like your backup weapon, then you're good to go. So I didn't really think much about it. I saw my brother doing computer engineering and I'm like, okay, screw it. Let me give it a shot. 2 years into it, I realized that when it comes to computer engineering, you can virtually, if you have a laptop, you can build something out of nothing. That's what software engineering is for me. And that was kind of fascinating. Like, what do you mean I can just open a thing and type a
Yeah.
few words and then I have something that does something? Like, whoa, okay, that's interesting. So I'm not one of those guys who started coding when they were 14 and they stayed up 24 hours. And I was never that guy. And that's when I started falling in love with software engineering and computer engineering altogether. And I was very interested in the robotics aspect of it as well. Before robotics were a thing 10, 12, 13 years ago. And as soon as I graduated, again, because you're in Lebanon, you have to constantly survive. To those who don't know, we don't have a lot of government-based safety nets. We don't have a lot of government support. We've had a lot of problems. So it's virtually every person for himself here in Lebanon. So as soon as you graduate, you have to work your ass off. And I'm sorry if we're using profanity. You can do the beep thing. It's
Sorry.
speak French a little bit, but you actually genuinely have to
Yeah.
work very hard to sustain yourself and your future self and your future family. So I graduated uni with a single mission: become as successful as I can, as rich as I can, and then enjoy life after that. And I'm someone who really, really works long nights. You know, these white hairs, they're not because I'm old. I'm 31 years old, but I think a lot, I assess a lot, I plan a lot. And what I would do is, as a fresh graduate, I would work 14-hour days instead of just 8 hours. So within 3 years of me being in the market, I would say I gathered 6 years worth of experience. And that's why within 3 years, I moved from a junior engineer to a tech team lead, which is something that usually takes around 5 or 6 years. But again, 18 hours a day, that makes up the math. Uh, but because of the Beirut port explosion, I was within very close proximity of the epicenter of the explosion. I had a very near death experience that day that I came out without a scratch. I came out of it without a single scratch. So then you have the
Mhm.
survivals and you go through the whole episode of getting over that kind of trauma, because it was a
Yeah.
beautiful explosion. That wasn't much.
I remember that explosion, to be honest. We saw it. It was terrible. So,
Well, paradoxically, it was also the most impactful event in my life to have happened, because it made me realize, it made me remember what matters and what doesn't matter. So
yeah.
me being focused on success and making money and becoming successful, etc., I started asking myself, what is it that really matters? Like, you have these existential questions when you have such an experience. And that's when I realized, you know what? I don't want to become a most successful engineer and then lead multi-billion-dollar infrastructure. That's not my thing. My thing is to genuinely somehow expand on human potential. So after the explosion, I went into my depression episode. Everybody went into their depression episode. And this is where I started building myself up from scratch, in the sense that how can I acquire as much freedom as I can for myself in such a way that allows me to do whatever I want, whatever I want, whenever I want, with whoever I want. This is my ultimate goal in life. And soon after that, this is when I decided that I don't want to be employed anymore, because almost every company I've worked with as a full-time employee, I end up leaving a year later. And that's when I realized it's not a company problem, it's a me problem. And it's not actually a
Right.
problem, misalignment. I wasn't built to abide by someone else's mission. That's not who I am. That's not what I want. So there was a trade-off here. You have to give up security and safety, and I had beautiful salaries, beautiful packages, beautiful worldwide insurances. Companies would fly here and there, so it was a nice life to give up on for the freedom that you have to purchase for yourself. So that's how I made the pivot, and that's why I chose to not bind myself with a certain definition or title. Once I
Mm.
had once and they asked me, so are you right now our chief technology officer or the director of technology? I'm like, call me chief potato officer. I don't care. Just let's get the point, you know? And if you see the way Sarah, you would understand that when it comes to these things, I really, really don't care. So this is how I got to this point. I started asking myself, how can I achieve these goals, doing whatever I want, whatever I want, whenever I want, with whoever I want? And how do I do it in such a way that expands human potential on the other hand? And that's how I started with the puzzle. So it's not a full-fledged plan where you
Mm.
have a 5-year plan and you reverse engineer it. It doesn't work that way, especially in Lebanon, because you don't know what's going to happen 2 months from now. So it's more of a, you give it a Hail Mary, you know, you're okay, let's go for it. And you start finding them piece by piece and you build the puzzle. And that's how I
Mm.
started these opportunities.
You're mentioning human capabilities, and it seems like you're looking into a lot of the human side and merging it with technology. This is what my background is in interaction design, where we look at the person behind that the person that's going to be using this technology. So we're not just putting things out for the sake of putting out. You have to think of the context that they're in and the world that they're living in, which I really love. How are you trying to, because you said this is where you're trying to change things, how are you doing that in your own way after not wanting to work for these big corporations?
I started picking my projects. So when you're working as a full-time employee, you don't have a say in what you want to work on, what you don't want to work
Yeah.
on. Say, aye, aye, captain, and then you
Yeah.
go and execute the mission. When you're a mercenary, you choose to be a mercenary or a missionary. And I chose to be a missionary for a very specific mission. So one of my clients had to do with neurotherapy for refugees. And neurotherapy is a whole beautiful concept for me. You know, there's mental therapy and then there's neuroplasticity combined together. And then, wow, you know, I'm like, okay, count me in, I'm in. Another one of my clients have to do with personality and leadership development based on DNA analysis, psychoanalysis, and then neuroanalysis. I'm like, okay, count me in. Those are the beautiful words that turn my brain on. So I took up some Lebanese projects here, something related to mentorship on AI, something related
Yeah.
to using technology to find jobs for Lebanese resources, something related to academia and reskilling people. So this is how I started asking myself, what kind of projects do you want to work on and what is the ultimate goal it's going to serve? And you asked me, what do you mean by expanding human potential?
Yeah.
This is a bit of a conversation for me because I know for a fact that when it comes to almost anything in this materialistic world, the only limitation to it is your mental capabilities and your self-made beliefs.
Mm.
The basis to everything that you want to build eventually is relying on how you think, your mindset, your mental framework, all of that together. And when you, so you can see throughout the conversation, Sarah, I've thrown an idea here and then an idea here and an idea here, and they're all
Mm.
unrelated if you put them together, if you put them independently, objectively. But then another thing that I'm grateful that I possess is the ability to connect these absolutely
Yeah.
irrelevant ideas to build a beautiful mesh eventually. And this is exactly how I'm doing this. And I'm going to continue on doing it until I figure out what that overall puzzle is going to look like, because you don't have always a full depiction of exactly what's going to happen. Some people do. Some people have an exact
Yeah.
goal, a very specific 5, 6, 7 year goal, and that's good on them. It's not a matter of right and or wrong. It's a matter of preferences at this point. And I don't prefer that. I prefer the suspense of, okay, what does, and I'm someone who's a spiritual believer. I believe in God. So
Mm.
some people don't. And that also affects how you think about things. Again, not calling right or wrong in this conversation, just
Yeah.
describing things as they are. So for me, it's a matter of, okay, what does God have for me next? If I'm the one choosing everything from now until 7 years, that's great. But first of all, my understanding is limited. You never know the future, especially nowadays with the paradigm shift that's happening. So instead of fixating on a very specific goal that is probably going to become obsolete soon enough, I go more toward a general direction of things. That's how I see it.
Can you expand on the general direction? What do
Yeah.
you mean?
How can I wake up every day and serve the mission that is expand the potential of human beings? So that's the general direction. And how do I actually execute on it is
Yeah.
anytime I network with someone. Assume I just met you over a networking event. Hi, Sarah, I'm Chris. What do you do for a living? And you tell me I'm building a fintech that allows people to trade crypto, whatever. Okay, that's cool. It doesn't interest me. You know, good to meet you. Have a nice day. But if I meet you, hi, Sarah, I'm Chris. What do you do for a living? I felt like this YouTube guy. You say something like, I work in academia to try and challenge the current curricula and how we teach people. So I'm redesigning the architecture of curricula, and I want to see how we can optimize the mental framework of students. And like, okay, would you like a beer so that we can have a conversation about this? This is how it usually happens. So
Hmm.
I base things off of humans in the sense that, first of all, what are the ideas coming out of these humans? And second of all, how can we combine them together to serve other humans? And there are two aspects of this. Some people say, oh, Chris, that's really nice of you that you're serving humans. And yeah, it is cool, but I don't want to be very selfless about it. I don't want to sound like a saint here. Yes,
Mm.
one of it selfless because I want to help humans, but the other part is when you solve problems for human beings, you get to make money out of it as well. So it's it's kind of me trying to combine the best of both worlds, making money while providing value instead of just following the money and making money for the sake of making money.
I'm curious, where does that drive come from? Because you mentioned that word a couple of times, that there's a purpose behind what you're doing, and I'm wondering, you don't need to give me a deep if it's too sensitive, but it seems like it comes from a very uh, a position where it motivates you deeply. It's not just something you just picked up off the tree and you're like, this is what I want to do. Where's that
Yeah,
motivation coming from?
Jesus Christ, I would say. Uh, you know how, okay, also living in Lebanon, most people usually idealize some politician, some local leader, there's always, every time I meet a human being, including myself, they have an idol, they have a god somehow,
Yeah.
and in many cases, they view that person as a god. Like they embody what they do, they speak the way they speak, and
Yeah.
that's really cool and all. But at one point in my life, I wasn't always this attached to the idea of Jesus Christ, by the way. But at one point in my life, I asked myself, who are all these people that we're following? You would follow a certain politician and you realize they're on the Epstein files. And like, okay, cool. That's not the best leader I want to follow eventually. Or you idolize someone and then you end up realizing that they're just another human being like you who have their vices, their weaknesses, and you would idolize something they've done. Maybe cool. You would get inspired by them. Maybe, okay, cool. But and then I thought to myself, okay, who's going to be my idol? Who's going to be the most impressive human being that has ever existed? Uh, who I would love to look up to and start behaving and thinking and feeling and trying to act the way they would. So it's not a religious thing altogether. It's
Yeah.
not out of religion for me more than it is who would you want to inspire from to become a kind of person that resembles that person? Because again, this is what we do. You have kids,
Yeah.
they look up to Superman and Batman. Alex Hormozy for entrepreneurs, whatever it is. Okay, cool. Good on you guys. Those are amazing choices. And I do look up to a lot of individuals here and there, but the
Mm.
basis of all of this, the why for me, the motivation, the purpose is Jesus Christ, the way he lived his life, the choices he made, the wisdom he had, what he taught us, what's important, what's not important, and that's basically it.
You're doing obviously an amazing job, because I was looking at the work that you've done. Given that you're helping a lot of founders as well in Lebanon, it does come from a good place. How do you integrate your purpose with the mission of bringing the tech world and the founders and the startups that you're helping? Is that like, there must be somewhere where you're like, okay, the tech scene is integrating with your drive to bring this, Lebanese founders forward.
So do you know the concept, the Japanese concept called ikigai? Have you heard of it
Yeah.
before?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's particularly based on ikigai. Like, what am I good at? What's something that makes me money? What's something that the world needs? And I forgot a couple other question intersection points that you do. And that's how I started linking things together, by the way. Uh, and fortunately for me, the fact that my dad won the fight when I was 18 years old and I went into technology and software engineering. Thank you, Dad. God bless you. uh, Fortunately, it's not that the world revolves around technology. Nowadays, with this technological revolution, the world is based on technology.
Mm.
Anything
Yeah.
if you want to write a blog post, you need technology. If you want to write an email, people use technology. So in one sense, yes, I try to connect the dots in a very unconventional way, but in another, it's kind of like this is the natural language we're using now. It's kind of like you say, okay, Chris, you speak Arabic, so how did you manage to combine Arabic, French, and English to talk about something? Well, I don't know. It's just the language that's there, and I picked up on it, and I'm just connecting the dots, and I'm trying to come up with new words that do not exist in the dictionary, and it's fun to do that. It's fun to create things that don't exist.
I want to talk more about the collective that you said you started. Uh, it's collective, and there's another company. Can you tell me more about them?
Yeah, yeah. So there's first of all something called the collective, and then there's the entity. The entity isn't a company, at least not yet. It's more of
Okay.
a concept. It's more of a uh, the idea of the enterprise that I want to have down the line. So that's why there's
Okay.
no marketing around it. There's no use cases around it. There's nothing. It's just the parked idea for now that I'm building slowly but surely. My current focus is actually the collective, which is to go back and give a bit of context about it, to those who don't know, back in 2018, 2019, Lebanon started having a very nice season in the Netflix original. And the first episode in that season was a hyperinflation and the collapse of the financial system. And to my European American friends, stay on the lookout because you might, I hope you know you don't, but you might witness something similar. And if you do, call us up, the Lebanese people, we can help you manage. We have experience with that. Uh, so when that whole thing started and the collapse happened, I started thinking to myself, how can we do these things better? You know, how can we
Mm.
manage better? And I forgot what I was going to say actually, Sarah,
About the collective.
about the collective, right?
Yeah.
What happened? Thank you for that. And what happened effective was we had a mass exodus of Lebanese resources. Everybody, all of my friends went to either Canada, Australia, Paris. We went everywhere. Understandably so. You got to survive, right? Uh, but this left us with a very big gap in the market because senior resources left the country. Those who were absolutely employed left their employers to find other employers in foreign countries that are going to give them more security. That's the basic formula of things. And this left Lebanese employers without their seniors, and it also left the Lebanese juniors without their seniors who were usually teaching them, right? So there was this major gap. And the way we tried to fill that gap is the employer, who is not a technical person, they rely on the senior technical expertise,
Mm.
decided to promote the juniors into senior leadership positions. But those juniors did not have the expertise to be juniors effectively. So they had to teach themselves. They had to do their best to understand what is going on. And when you teach yourself and there's not a senior teaching you, you learn by making mistakes, and you learn by making mistakes with the business you're working for. And that would frustrate the business owner, and that creates a clash within the team. And that
Mm.
happened. That thing happened for a good 2 to 3 years, I would say, minimum 2 to 3 years. And I would talk to a lot of CEOs, a lot of engineers, a lot of students. There was just this big, massive frustration, miscommunication due to the gap that happened with the senior leadership. So for a good few years, and I realized one thing, by the way, as a technology leader, you know, you need data in front of you. You need to understand what is going on in the market. And to those who don't know, here in Lebanon, we don't have any data. So if a junior engineer, someone who graduated school wanted to figure out what to do in uni, there's no data that says, hey, we have 25,000 software engineers who graduated last year and we've only employed 5,000. So there's not enough market for you. So do something else. We don't have the data.
Mm.
What we do have is people's opinion. You ask your uncle, you ask your grandma, you ask your neighbor, and that's your data. It's very unstructured, very subjective data, and that's not sustainable to building a country, a career, or a life. So we have a gap in seniority, we have a gap in resources and data, and we also have a gap in decentralization. And I don't want to talk about this from a political sense, but
Mm.
most of our events, most of the networking, most of the funding, most of everything happens in Beirut, the capital, which is in the center coastal area of Lebanon. And this leaves a lot of remote areas within the country uh, ignored, I would say. I want to choose that word. They're ignored. So if someone lives in up north in Akkar and Dania in Lebanon, they want a
Yeah.
network, they have to make a 2 hour trip all the way to Beirut somehow, because we have a very screwed up public transport system. We have a virtually non-existent public, but the ministry is doing some work here. So I don't want to be just too critical.
Mm.
And they risk their lives on the road because it's kind of risky, to be honest. If you've driven in Lebanon, you would understand. Uh, and then they have to either go back home at the end of the night using the same dangerous public transport mechanisms, or they have to rent a room that they can't even afford. They're students who just want a network, you know? So you have also the decentralization gap. And at one point, I caught myself nagging about this as well. And I thought to myself, why the hell are you nagging? That's not going to bring you anything. Either do something about it or shut up about it. So I chose to not shut up about it because, as you may see, I don't like shutting up too much. And I decided to do something about it. And one day I did a roundtable of most of Lebanon's software boot camps at the day. Something with information security, people who teach software development, people who teach at university. I had a route, and then you have CEOs of companies, you have leaders in NGOs. We did a whole roundtable, and we thought to ourselves, what can we do? And we pinpointed these three main verticals. And fast forward a year from then, we now have the first national report around the technology scene in Lebanon. We had 100 submissions, which isn't a very high number, but for me, it's a start of a
Yeah.
nationwide report. We also started expanding outside of Beirut. We went into Tripoli, which is in the north. We went into the Betaa, which is in the central valley of Lebanon, and we started expanding there across the ecosystem. We're also expanding across universities. I've had people reach out to me from London and from Paris who want to also establish something similar there. And like, okay, go for it. Uh, so essentially, this is it. We were out. What are the gaps in the community that we have? What are the issues that we're facing? What are the things that ideally we would want a government or a non-governmental entity to help us with? And how can we do it together? That's how it happened. So I wouldn't say I'm building the collective. That would
Mm.
set everybody else too short. It's a very nice collective of people who have pitched in. Some have stayed, some have left, some came late.
Mm.
It doesn't matter to us. It's more of a, okay, this is our mission. This is what we're doing. Do you have some time to pitch in? Great. If you don't, great. And it's a not for profit kind of thing. I don't want to profit from it. I don't want to make financial profit out of it, but everybody profits eventually because you've contributed to this national survey. You've contributed to expanding the tech ecosystem toward the north. You've contributed to doing this. You've contributed to doing that. So you are part of a big network of like-minded people, well-intended like-minded people. We're all headed in the same direction. And the way I see it is when you have a single brain thinking on its own, it's a 1x computing power. If it's 2 brains, it's going to be 2x computing power. But if it's 50 brains, it's going to be exponential. You're going to create that mastermind of exponential computing power between multiple human beings who are vibrating on the same frequency. And this is exactly what we're doing at this point. So it's more
Yeah.
of a passion project. People have said, okay, Chris, register it as an NGO and start getting funds and stuff. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do any of that, to be honest. I don't want to ask for money, anyone for money. I don't want anybody offering me money because I know for a fact that nothing is for free in this world. And if someone gives you something, they expect something in return. With all
Mm.
due respect, everyone and humbly, I really don't want to serve anybody's agenda. If it aligns with mine, I'm more than happy to collaborate. But this is how we're doing it. In Lebanon, we say عم نقاتل باللحم الحي. And it's kind of like we're bootstrapping it. We're working it with our own bare hands, and we're proud of it. We're happy about it, and that's how we're doing it.
Yeah. I think as you mentioned something really important that maybe people in different geographical locations don't know. And this is why I think traveling is so important. Having lived in Lebanon, I know the nature of Lebanon. You have mountains, you have small roads. And the reason it is the way it is, it's the nature of it, you know? And sometimes you need to adapt different ways of I would say in this aspect that you're talking, you need to adapt things to the country itself. You cannot just come and bring something that worked, for example, here in Sweden and automatically put it in a country like Lebanon. It's not going to work. You need to think about the communities, where they're based, and how you reach them. Sometimes, like you mentioned, certain trips used to take 2 hours to Beirut. And I do
Yeah.
feel with these students,
And that's minus traffic, by the way, Sarah. Sorry, that's minus traffic.
I've driven in Lebanon. I have sat in those traffics. And I feel bad because I do have 2 young kids and I always think from their perspective. And my question becomes, how do these founders, let's say there are no shortages of great talent in Lebanon, and I've seen it. How do they get nurtured? I read one of your posts on Instagram where you said the private sector needs to be more involved. What do you mean by that? And how can they get more involved in this? Because you also know that there's an incentive for everything. People
100%.
get involved for their personal gains, or they just need to do something for their community. How do you bring that out?
So in terms of the actual implementation of the framework, I would leave it to the experts. My job as a technology leader is to highlight what can be done, and not how we can. So when it comes to the legislation, the frameworks, I would love to collaborate on them, but the private sector needs to be involved in the sense that, so I'll take myself as an example. I'm part of the private sector as an engineer and as a CTO. I don't have a master's degree. I don't have a PhD. I barely graduated uni with a GPA of 2.6, and I'm proud of it, by the way. But
Mm.
for me to get to a point where universities contact me to become a lecturer there, that's a way of integrating the private sector in academia. They're not doing it because I have the brightest of minds and the greatest of research papers. They're doing it because I have the greatest of results in the private sector while having some academic experience in terms of teaching. So that's a combining academia with the private sector. When it comes to ministerial aspects, when it comes to legislation, when it comes to the infrastructure plans and budgets, unfortunately in Lebanon, it's mostly politicized. It's mostly based on these agendas that you're talking about. And even further, unfortunately, most of these agendas that we're serving are not Lebanese. They're foreign agendas that we have to serve. So This is what I mean by including the private sector, in the sense that as a public figure, as a public official, your job is to serve that private sector in a sense. And if you want to serve it well and you want to serve it properly, you have to include that private sector in the decision making, whether it's the research, whether it's the data, whether it's how do we know what we need, Sarah? How would I know as a technology leader? How would I know what my ecosystem needs to thrive if I don't talk to the private sector and ask it, what do you need? And if I don't ask it, how do we get it done? The silo effect that we have in Lebanon, the private sector alone, the public sector alone, academia alone, the religion alone, everything functions as a silo, and there's a great disconnect. It makes us lag behind. And this is what I mean by including the private sector in everything, in the sense that if you want to run a telecom network, cool. What are the challenges you're facing in the private sector that are preventing you from making more money and bringing more money into the country? And how can we, the public sector, come up with legislation and frameworks that serve you, the private sector, so you can bring more money into the country so that we, the public sector, can benefit from your taxes? It's a very simple formula. Uh, Complex to implement, especially in a country that is as diverse as Lebanon. I want to choose the term diverse. So I'm not here to criticize people for not implementing it. I understand. I'm simply describing the fact that the easiest solution toward a highway of advancement, quote unquote, is going to be by including the private sector in academia and legislation and strategizing on a national level.
I do believe in academia needs to be involved, given that you cannot put everyone outside of certain people. They love it, and there needs to be a collaboration between different institutions. Eh, If someone wants to build in Lebanon, what are the advantages there for them?
The fact that we live in a wilderness can be taken to an advantage. We do live in a wilderness in Lebanon. I'll take the
Yeah.
context of a Western European country, for example. If I'm an entrepreneur and I want to test out an idea, I want to build a product, and I want to see if there's a market fit, you can't really do much without signing 25,000 paperwork and registering a company and doing all sorts of legalities to just test something out. You want to just test. You're not even a profit-making company at this
Mm,
point. But you
yeah.
can't do that without proper regulation in Europe or in the US. One of the advantages we have in Lebanon is the fact that our legal frameworks are a bit loose, which is a double-edged sword, because you can hijack that and use it for negative aspects and harm people around you. So that's one of the negative aspects. But from a technological standpoint, we can actually take advantage of it to experiment, to play around with things. I know a lot of people who have some agricultural agri-tech projects. They're not yet registered in the country, but they're not making any profit yet. They're testing things around. They're seeing if it's going to solve their own personal problem. And they don't need 25 licenses from 25 separate governmental bodies to get it done. So
Mm,
the fact that we do live in a wilderness right now, again, it's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it's every man for himself, quote unquote. So you might encounter people who actually want to harm you. I'm not talking about the physical harm, I'm just talking about that there's no law to properly protect you. But on the other hand, you can use it to your own advantage in a way that not only does not harm others, but also benefits them. And this is one of the greatest advantages I believe we have. We can just put on our shoes and start running instead of having to take 25 permissions before we take a step forward.
mm. Yeah, I think you have a great opportunity as well for, I mean, any country in your position to keep also the data and keep people involved in the discussion. What I don't like is when technology takes over without the people being involved in the direction it's going. So I think they're in the quote unquote the wilderness that you're talking about. Then it's a great opportunity to bring the youth and allow them to be part
Yeah.
of this. How they want.
Provided we give them a healthy environment to grow in that wilderness. Because again, a wilderness can end up amputating you. You can end up with a broken arm. It's a wilderness. So instead of turning it into a very well groomed garden, okay, keep it a wilderness. You know how you have the wilderness and then you have the mountain rangers to somehow
Mm,
help people out whenever they need it. You have these little shacks here and there. So you go, you do your hunt, you do your camping, and if you need to survive somehow, you have a shack to shelter you. You can call a number for a mountain ranger to come and save you. So I don't
mm,
want it to be a remote wilderness where people kill each other to survive. It's not the Hunger Games. That's not what I want. I
mm,
just want it to be wild enough for people to stay on edge, to stay at the edge of technology, to constantly evolve. Because again, you mentioned something about why is everybody an entrepreneur in Lebanon? It's because we have to innovate. We have to
yeah.
create
Yeah.
solutions. We have to solve things. And we do that because it's a wilderness. So we create our own fire instead of relying on a network of gas infrastructure that spans across cities. So it has its pros and cons, but especially going toward the paradigm shift that we're facing nowadays, Sarah. We need builders. The world, it's not about Lebanon at this point. The world is going to need builders. It's going to need free thinkers. It's going to need those who have spent a lot of time innovating and trying things out, and who are better at doing that, except a Lebanese population that has had generations upon generations of people creating their own solutions to problems they did not even create themselves. So I think moving forward, the fact that we've been in the wilderness not only is going to benefit us internally, it's also going to benefit the world, because the world is also going to turn into a wilderness soon enough. I hope it doesn't, but the way things are moving, at least. And it's going to require experienced wilderness engineers to come and help out with that. And that's another one of the pros we have in Lebanon.
You mentioned before we started that you want the diaspora to come back more. Can you expand upon that?
Well, first of all, I miss my friends. That's the very selfish aspect of it. But second of all, most people left the country. You were talking about it a bit before we started recording. It's a very beautiful country. You've got the Mediterranean on the one hand, you've got some of the most beautiful mountains on the other. You have rivers, you have the desert, you have it's a microplanet. It's a planet.zip file that's called Lebanon. So why do I want to bring people back? Because nobody left Lebanon. Very few people left Lebanon because they don't like the country. You know, I don't think many people have woken up, and I'm sorry for any nationals who might be hearing this, and don't take it personal, but I don't think a Lebanese person, you see the sun on my face right now in February, right? I don't think anyone woke up one day and said, oh my goodness, I hate this. I want to go spend 6 months in Stockholm without any sunlight. Nobody says that, Nobody woke up one day and said, wow, the sun is so annoying. I'm going to go to the UK, to London, and just enjoy fog for 6 months. Nobody said that. Everybody was forcefully uprooted from this country so that they can survive somewhere, and so that they can provide a more decent future for their families. So a few years ago, I would have been okay with it. But now I'm seeing that this whole facade of the world being what we thought it was is wrong. There is no reason for you guys to stay depressed and upset and disconnected from your mother country just because you think you're going to have some uh, uh, central heating or better education. Or but what tells you that academia and education altogether are going to stay valid 5 years from now? What tells you that whatever infrastructure that you have right now isn't going to be blown into smithereens because someone in the east was upset with someone in the west, and then they decided to have a fight in the center? It doesn't make any sense. So a lot of it is not based on objective expert political analysis. I'm not calling myself a political analyst or an expert, but given the way things are and have been evolving, people left the country, people left Lebanon 5-6 years ago. That was one of the waves of exodus, I would say. The reason for that exodus no longer exists. People went to Europe because they wanted to get their own passports from those countries. Well, you might wake up one day to a bunch of rightist nationalists who are going to kick you out anyway. So this is what I'm not trying to actively bring people back. It's just a nice conversation I try to tease my friends with every now and then, but I'm on a personal mission to keep those in Lebanon here. And another thing I like is there are multiple companies here in Lebanon that do the same thing. There's a staff augmentation company called Supportful. Everybody go visit supportful.world. They're beautiful. This is not a paid advertisement, by the way. They're on a mission to retain Lebanese talent within Lebanon and allow them to make money from elsewhere. And another thing I appreciate is Europeans and Westerners who reside in Lebanon. They live in Lebanon, they work in Lebanon, and they've been building a lot of ventures, a lot of communities, a lot of initiatives to benefit the country itself. So we can always look at all the reasons why we should leave, and we can always look at all the reasons why we should come back. And I've heard a lot of stories, and I know some people actually who lived in the US and who lived in Europe and who lived in Canada. And then one day they woke up absolutely upset with where they are, and they packed up, and then they came back to Lebanon. So it truly is a country full of problems, full of challenges. And if you're strong enough, if you're determined enough, resilient enough, you can create 25 different business models from one challenge. Imagine thousands of challenges in front of you. Each one of that has multiple business models. It's just a matter of what kind of lifestyle do you want. If you're looking for tranquility, security, stability, I've been to Europe multiple. I wouldn't survive living there. And to any ambassador watching this video, anytime I apply to your country, give me an extended visa. I promise you, I want to come back here. I wouldn't survive there. The security aspect, the fact that some system is carrying me around, telling me what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, it doesn't sit well with me. So some people are okay with that and they want it. Great. I hope you have a lot of fun. But some people are outside and they don't enjoy it. But خلاص, hey, come back. We can have a good time here.
Yeah. What excites you in the next 5 years for Lebanon?
The unprecedented opportunity we have to flip the table.
What do you mean
So
flip the table?
flip the entire table, whether it's the political table, the technological table, the business table.
Yeah.
World has been sitting on a very sturdy rock for the
Yeah.
past few decades. That was the old current world order. From a political standpoint, from an economical standpoint, and an industrial standpoint. So anytime you wanted to create value, you had to have massive infrastructure and natural resources. You don't need that anymore. You just need a computer and a way to prompt an AI engineer so that it builds you virtually anything. So I think because of this seismic shift that we're seeing in the order of the world as it is, and I'm not talking conspiracy, I'm not talking secret societies, I'm just saying things as they are, we have a chance at flipping the table. And instead of being the victim that we've been for the past few decades, instead of being the poor country that's being beaten down here and there, we can finally flip the table, utilize the cutting edge technology that we have access to so that we can create our own technology and utilize the brain power that we have, utilize the massive worldwide international network that we have to spearhead the techno industrial revolution. That's what I want to call it. We had the industrial revolution before. And then with the dot-com era in the early 2000s, we had the technological revolution. And now combining both, we have a techno-industrial revolution that we can genuinely leverage along with the political scene that's happening, along with the whole, again, quicksand that we're living on, to establish a new positioning for the country that allows us to lead the region. Something for that, or the main challenge or blocker for that, is not the capacity. It's just the sheer determination and the will of an entire population uniting as one Lebanese entity instead of several fragmented sects. That's it. I'm excited about it. To answer your question, it's in the 5 years, everything is going to change from the ground up, genuinely from the ground up. So I want to give this heads up to everybody. Don't be surprised when you wake up and you realize that nothing is the way it was. This not only is everything changing fast, the speed at which things are changing is also increasing. So buckle up, fasten your seatbelts, learn as many skills as you can, and do not attach to a job description. Do not attach yourself to a title. Do not attach yourself to anything, because almost anything is going to become obsolete at this point. And the only thing we should be attached to is, how can I create better value today? And that's what excites me.
I would say I echo the same sentiment. That's why with this podcast, one of my objective has been to highlight the Middle Eastern tech talents. Mainly because I always thought about if I had stayed in Lebanon with the two kids that I have, if they wanted to go into the entrepreneurial path or they had similar dreams that I had, just starting something on my own,
Yeah.
how would they approach it? Where would they go? We can say we're living, I'm not going to call it privilege. Privilege is very relative. There were times when I lived in Lebanon, I felt I'm the most privileged person because of everything you described in Lebanon. But I think it comes down to the opportunities you offer the youth, because what you don't want to happen in a country is that they lose their future goals and plans, and then they have to pick up and leave. And that's one of the worst things you can do, just pick up and leave where you come from. And this is something in the West people have hard time grasping. It's not that easy to pick up and leave from your home, from your community, from where you speak the same language, you eat the same food, you joke the same, you understand each other. It's not easy to pick up and leave. What excites me is continuing putting spotlight also in the tech scene that comes from the Middle East and give people abroad another view of Middle East. We're not the narratives, without going too political, we're not these narratives that has been constructed for us without our
Yeah.
consent. We're
100%.
more than that. So
100%. The most beautiful depiction and the most accurate depiction of Lebanon I see, by the way, is, I don't know if you've watched Arab stand-up comedians from the Middle East, Jordanian stand-up comedians, Egyptian stand-up comedians. The way they depict Lebanon is so funny, so beautiful, so accurate. I feel like we're this cool sister of, or cool brother of the Middle Eastern family that everybody looks at and say, hey, well, we want to enjoy having fun with you, but we can't do it ourselves for some reason. So we're just going to look up to you. And that's the thing. They look up to us in some aspects. And I'm speaking this
yeah.
from a very humble, non-egotistic standpoint, by the way, in the sense that they look up to how open we are. They look up to how multidisciplinary we are. They look up to how multilingual we are. And even within the same Lebanese language that we have people who say this is Arabic. We have people who say this is rooted in Aramaic. So
Mm,
even the language itself, the simplest of things, which is almost any country has one language. The French have French, the English have English. It's that simple. The Lebanese, I don't know what we have, but we have our own alphabet going on. And even inside Lebanon, you have different dialects. And guys, I swear, those of you who don't know, this is the planet. This is Lebanon. So it's it's a paradox, and I love that. And how do we change it? But the thing is, there are two aspects to people's perception of Lebanon and the Middle East. There's the internal aspect that has to do with us and what we have been showcasing in display. And then there's the external aspect, which is what the world has been intentionally showcasing in display. I mean, you look at American movies, at Western American movies, anytime they want to depict the Middle East, they have this yellow, grayish filter with a camel behind you. It's always the same. So
yeah.
if you watch that for 30 years and you have two generations watching that sort of movie, anytime you think of Lebanon, you're going to find camels. And I had one CEO who lives in Canada who came over to Lebanon once, and she was actually bamboozled by, wait, this isn't how I imagined Lebanon to be. Well, yeah, I wouldn't blame you. So our job is to change it internally the way I am personally. I know many people who are doing it the same way. You go on podcasts, you write about it,
Mm,
you go on LinkedIn, you do all sorts of things that not try to change the image of Lebanon. That's not the goal. The goal is to, first of all, try to change your own image. Number one, enhance it, optimize it. And number two, express that image. Number three, connect with other people who are expressing their own image. And then soon enough, there's going to be a boule de neige. There's going to be a snowball effect that's going to
yeah.
increase slowly but surely. And there's the other aspect that we can't really control. We can somehow lobby for, influence maybe, I don't know, but we can't control the way the West depicts the Middle East. And that's not my problem, if I'm being honest. It's not my responsibility. And this is something that has served me personally very well, Sarah. It's the fact that I personally don't care too much about how people perceive me. And as such, I wouldn't care too much about how people perceive my country and my region. It's just a matter of this is who I am, this is who we are. If you like what you see, come work with us. And if you don't, good luck. It's not a matter of, oh no, just good luck. I hope you find the people you want to work with. If you see us this way, it's your loss because come on, we can have really cool parties in Lebanon. You're missing out on a lot.
Yeah.
It's their loss, I would say.
Sometimes I forget my kids are half Lebanese because you guys come with similar attitudes.
I mean, yeah.
On that note, before we wrap up, the founders or anyone in Lebanon, specifically in tech, that they're engineers sitting somewhere listening to this, uh, what are the first steps they should take? How can they approach you, and how can they
To
start
talk to
building
me.
something? Yeah, to you. How
Oh,
can
it's
they?
I don't like formalities, guys. Just reach me on WhatsApp, visit my LinkedIn, shoot me a message. I don't know how the video editing can put some phone numbers here, like we
I
did
will
on
put
TV.
the details in the show
Well,
note,
please,
of
please do.
course.
I don't know how to do any of that. I feel like a
Yeah,
dinosaur when it comes to media. So this
no
is how you
worries.
can reach me, guys. I'm very sociable. Don't send me emails. No, just text me, tell me what's up, and I'll see how I can help you. And if I'm not the one to help you, I will definitely know someone who either helps
Mm,
you or know someone to help you. This is how I operate. So I
yeah,
always say, whenever I do introductory calls with people, the best case scenario, we end up working together. The worst case scenario, you gain an ally in the ecosystem who's going to introduce you to other allies. That's how
yeah.
I function.
Cool.
As for getting started, I would say, guys, uh, we're all boarding a very rocky boat. I'm not saying it's going to sink, but it's going to change seismically. And for it to change, sometimes we're going to be in the water while they do the reconstruction. So to those who don't know how to swim, start learning how to swim. To those who are afraid of the waves, start diving into the waves. And to those who are afraid of AI replacing you, AI is not going to replace you. An AI augmented human is going to replace you. So your issue nowadays is not with AI and ChatGPT and no. It's always wake up every day. Think of it this way, Sarah. This is the analogy I always use. We have been riding horses for the past 2000 years. And when OpenAI and Anthropic and all of these guys opened up one day, like 3 years ago, we woke up and we realized that we no longer have a horse. Somehow we have a Porsche that's an automatic and that can go from 0 to 100 in 3 seconds. And we can't really wrap our heads around that because we've never driven a car. We've never even seen a car before. All what we've been using for transport is a horse. So learn how to drive the car, guys, because the car is only going to evolve. And if you're always going to be riding a horse, I like horses. I like going back to my roots, but I also need to be on the edge of technology. And this is what everybody needs to do. Mess up with AI, mess around with AI. How can I build this with AI? How can I do that with AI? Whatever it is that you want to do, think to yourself, how can I automate it? How can I have a robot do it on my behalf? Because moving forward, the impact and the edge and the benefit are not going to be for the people who do things. It's going to be for the people who think about nice things and know how to orchestrate an army of robots and human brains to do it on their behalf. This is where the edge is going to be. So either be the operator that executes with these robots or be the operator that orchestrates the operators and the robots. That's it. There's nothing else for us to worry about. And there's nothing to worry about effectively. It's just a matter of jump in the water. You're not going to sink. Have a little faith. Give it a Hail Mary or whatever God you believe in, or don't. That's up to you. But have a little faith and talk to me. Reach out to me and I can help you out.
Be part of this discussion, I would say, from my end, as much as you can. Just be part of the discussion and shape it for you.
That's Sarah. I was about to shut up, but now you gave me a reason to talk more, to be
Go
honest.
on.
Be part of the conversation and the discussion because, again, our generation has been blessed with the opportunity to recreate a world order altogether. How many generations are going to have that chance? And your words okay, that's the thing. So again, 30 years ago, if you had an opinion and you wanted to put out that opinion, the best thing you could have done is talk to your friends about it or stand in the middle of a square. And for you to publish it or have it publicized, that's going to be a near impossible thing. You have to know someone who works at a magazine, etc., etc. Now with a single tweet, you can reach millions, guys. And not only can you reach millions to influence millions of people, keep in mind that now we're going to be able to influence millions of robotic opinions. This exists. Robots have opinions nowadays. They make decisions nowadays. They have a mind of their own, and they're going to continue to grow that mind of their own. So not only would it be nice for you to be part of the conversation, it's crucial for us to be part of the conversation. It's crucial for us to start thinking about it in the sense that how am I going to integrate robots into my society? Because we're going to have to face that reality. How are we going to communicate with these beings or things, or I don't even know what term we're going to use to it because it's such a fresh concept that we have to wrap our heads around. And how can we do it in such a way that does not create any enmity between us? How can we not be afraid of each other? So it's kind of like for the past few thousands of years, we human beings have been so afraid of each other to the point where we've been killing each other. Fortunately, in 2026, in some areas of the globe, we've realized that this doesn't work that way. And talking to each other based on fear and insecurity doesn't lead anywhere. And that's why we have open dialogues. We have better communication skills. We have more empathy toward each other. I strongly urge us all to not repeat the same mistake with robots because we don't want to go for another Terminator that actually exists in real life. And here I want to also invite everybody to research the Kardashev scale, the type 0, type 1, type 2 civilizations. If we had the time, Sarah, I would love to spend a couple minutes on that. But if not, I would say just
Of course. No. Please go ahead.
Okay. So some time ago, I think it was in the 1800s, there was a Russian scientist whose last name was Kardashev. I forgot the first name. And he was thinking to himself, there are probably alien civilizations out there, right? How can we assess the advancement of those civilizations? So first he thought we can look at their religious advancement. And then he realized, no, religion is very subjective, contextual, etc. And then he said, maybe it's about, I don't know, what kind of democracies they have. And then he said, no, that's very subjective as well. So he wanted to go to the core of operating principles of the universe. And he said, energy. It's energy consumption. The way a civilization creates, harnesses, and consumes energy tells us a lot about the maturity of that civilization. And he came up with a scale of 4 types or 4 levels of civilization. You have type 0, which is us, human beings right now. They are a civilization that is only getting familiar with things. We're learning how to build fire. We're learning what a nuclear reactor is. We're learning how to implement nuclear technology without killing each other. Well, we're going to put that aside. But we're learning about things. We're only starting to harness solar power, et cetera, et cetera. And then a type 1 civilization is a unified civilization. They all speak relatively the same language. We're on the same wavelength. We've ascended from hitting each other and being afraid of each other toward actual collaboration. We've gotten to a point where we can harness the energy of our host planet to 100%. That's a type 1 civilization. And then a type 2 civilization does the same thing with the hosting star, the sun. Theoretically, we can actually do that, by the way, using something called the Dyson sphere, except we don't have the technology to build it yet. and they can harness the energy of the host star up to 100% efficiency. And then there's a type 3 civilization, the third type, which does the same thing on an intergalactic level, on a black hole level. That's basically when you would become the admin of the universe, the administrator of the universe. So right now, as human beings, we are at the edge of type 0. We've only recently started speaking the same language. Almost everyone, not everyone, but a big chunk of the population
Yeah.
speaks English. If I'm living in Lebanon, you're living in Kuala Lumpur, we probably both speak English. We can understand each other. We all share the same online communication protocols. We share relatively the same way of doing business and dealing with money. So this aspect of going from type 0 to type 1, we're there. Energy as well, we're doing that. And now we're starting to tap into the planet's core energy to start extracting it, because we have to power up the data centers, because fossil fuels are not going to power up zettabytes of data centers. So we're at the edge. But the thing is, it's not a matter of we walk toward the type 1 civilization. No, we have to make a jump, right?
Yeah.
And we either sink into dystopia or we go toward utopia. And the thing is, with AI, we have technology, and then you have AI. So you have AI with technology. And there is one thing that people always forget, we haven't really shed a lot of light on. It's quantum computing.
Yeah.
Quantum universe on its own, I'm not going to get into that because I'm an amateur. I'm not a subject matter expert. I'm just a fascinated, curious child in the world of quantum. Like, what?
Yeah.
But apply those concepts to computers and bring quantum computers combined with AI, I think we're going to have an explosive set of advancements soon enough. So we're about to make that jump, Sarah.
Yeah.
And for me personally, if we rely on our own understanding of how we should govern things, if we rely on limited human understanding of how things should happen, we're definitely going to go into dystopia. We're flawed by design. We have our vices by design. We have our shortcomings by design. And the whole essence of life and the whole purpose of life is to try and overcome these vices in the first place. So as long as we're going to do that, and if I create a being that represents me, AI, we're creating AI and it represents me, right? If I create a very uh, great creation that's coming from a very great but also flawed creation, that creation is also going to be flawed. Give it a lot of steroids, because AI is human on steroids. It can think very fast, can harness a lot of information, it can do a lot of things, and it has a lot of powers as well. So give a flawed thing a lot of steroids and it's going to create a lot of flawed outcomes as well. And so that's why I think, and this is not a very popular topic at this point, I don't know how the guardrails and the guidelines for AI and how AI should behave are built. And some people are going to hate me for that, and I'll take it. But if we don't build large language model systems and AI agents and robots, and if we don't tell them, you are to abide by the 10 commandments that maximize our safety as humans, that maximize your integrity, that maximizes you being an honest being with me, that maximizes everything that is good about you and minimizes everything that is bad. If we don't implement it in that way, we're not going to have a lot of fun moving forward. And that's what's going to lead towards something similar to the Terminator, in my opinion, because it's flawed designs creating power for flawed designs, creating power for flawed designs. And the only way toward a flawless design is those are the guardrails for flawless designs. We just have to follow them. That's it.
One last thing, because that's a very interesting topic. Are you worried that AI ends up in the wrong hands? Are you? I'm sure you're familiar with Mo Gaudat.
No.
No. So basically, he talks about how AI can get in the wrong hands and create a huge mess for the rest of us. Do you have any of that sort of?
Of course, man.
Yeah.
I don't trust I don't trust myself. I trust myself, but I don't trust human beings. When we created gunpowder, Sarah, we created it because so many gold miners were dying inside the mines. So let's just blow up these mines and extract some. And then it got into the wrong hands and we killed each other with it. We created nuclear reactors so that we can generate infinite powers, but then we bombed a few countries with it. It's of course, it's something that worries me per se. And I owe a lot of that to the Beirut explosion. I've already faced death multiple times. I'm not afraid of facing it again. That's why I'm not worried per se. Is it something that's on my radar? Yes. And that's why I'm doubling down on the fact that any guardrail has to follow these 10 commandments, just because even us humans, we can't follow these perfect principles. But let the artificial intelligence follow that perfectionism so that we have some sort of security and safety.
Mm,
So I wouldn't say I'm worried about it, but I would say this is something we have to solve. And Anthropic, by the way, the people behind Claude, if they're truly honest with what they're saying, and if it's not a facade, their battle with the US government, bravo, kudos, good on you, because this is what we need. We need someone to say, no, I'm not going to use my technology to kill people. I'm not going to use my technology to snatch presidents from their houses. I don't want to talk politics. It's nations between themselves. You do what you got to do. But
mm,
if I start using AI now to kill people, what's going to stop me from doing it in the future? And consolidate all of that power in the hand of a very few elites and trust the intention of those elites, it's going to be an interesting ride. It's going to be a fun ride. So if you know Will Smith from that movie, hire him. If you know Chuck Norris, hire him. And if you know how to build Noah's Ark, I'm not going to say build it now, but you might want to get to a point where you know how to build things.
mm. Yeah. On that note, let's end it with a positive
Nice.
uh, with a positive encouragement for everyone that is listening, that there is actually a huge opportunity for you if you're starting. So I hope I see more founders coming out of Lebanon, and I would love to feature them talking about how they're building up. So please, anyone listening, just keep on going and reach out to Chris. You you seem to have a lot of knowledge, so they will be in good hands coming to you.
Thank you, Sarah. Just one last thing regarding the want to finish it on a positive note. I wasn't
Sure.
aware that it was a negative note. I was genuinely giving people a reality check. We're
No, no,
not
no. I'm just joking with you, so don't
I'm
worry.
with you. I'm with you. I do. I want to end it on that positive note in the sense that it's everybody's duty to get into the
Yeah,
game, get your hands
yeah,
dirty,
yeah,
start learning, and start influencing that AI instead of letting it
yeah,
influence you. So yeah,
yeah.
get started. So this is genuinely the best time we've ever had to do things differently. So might as well do it.
I
Thank you so
agree.
much for
Thank
your
you so much for your time. Thank
talk
you.
to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Sarah. Bye.